Good evening everyone. Today we will be discussing on meningioma and ependymoma. These two will be the last topics for the CNS discussion. Coming to meningioma, the term meningioma was first coined by Harvey Cushing to describe the tumors originating predominantly from the meningeal coverings of the brain. They arise from the arachnoid capsules. 85 to 90% of the tumors are supratentorial in location. Epidemiology, meningiomas are the most frequently reported primary intracranial neoplasm. This is a very important. The most common benign primary brain tumor is intracranial neoplasm is meningioma. And the pediatric meningiomas are rare but are more likely to exhibit an aggressive clinical course. And meningiomas are most often diagnosed during the old age 6th to 7th decade of life, and meningiomas more frequently occur in females compared to men, the ratio of 2:1. Etiology of the meningioma, radiation exposure, stemming largely from the studies of atomic bomb fallout, but also from studies of cranial and scalp irradiation. Recent data suggest lower dose exposure, such as seen in dental X-rays, may also increase the risk of meningioma development. Indeed, the radiation-induced meningiomas are most commonly reported secondary neoplasm. Coming to molecular biology of the meningiomas, meningiomas occur more frequently in certain rare genetic conditions such as neurofibromatosis 2. The mutation in the NF2 gene on chromosome 22 is the most common cytogenetic alteration. Nearly all NF2 meningiomas have mutations of the NF2 gene, and most susceptible families have alterations of the NF2 locus. Genetic loss of chromosomes in 1p, 10 and 14q have been linked with the malignant progression or recurrence. Tumors with NF2, AKT1, SMO, PAK3CA and TRAF7 mutations have been found in approximately 80% of the sporadic meningiomas. And there is something called TERT mutation, telomerase reverse transcriptase promoter mutation, have been aligned with short overall survival. Coming to the appearance of the meningiomas, macroscopic and microscopic. Macroscopically, there are two types, globose and n-plaque meningiomas. These globose meningiomas are rounded, well-defined dural muscles, likened to the appearance of a fried egg seen in profile. And n-plaque meningiomas, on the other hand, are extensive regions of dural thickening. Coming to microscopic appearance of the meningioma, they arise from the meningothelial arachnoid cells. We already know that. And histological subtypes include transitional, fibroblastic, syncytial, psammomatous, secretory, microcystic, papillary, and rhabdoid. And coming to WHO classification of meningioma, they are graded into 3 grades: grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. Grade 1 is called benign, grade 2 is atypical, and grade 3 is anaplastic or malignant. This is important for us. This is the one tells us the management protocol, how to go about the treatment of the meningioma. Coming to grade 1, any major variant other than clear cell, choroid, papillary, or rhabdoid does not fulfill criteria of grade 2 or 3. Grade 2, it is also called atypical meningioma. Here the mitosis count is more than 4 or the following, 3 or more of the following: sheeting architecture, hypercellularity, prominent nucleoli, small cells with higher nuclear cytoplasmic ratio, and spontaneous necrosis. Or additional subtypes like choroid, clear cell, and brain invasion. Grade 3 is also called anaplastic or malignant meningioma, which has excessive mitotic index more than 20 per 10 hyperfield, or frank anaplasia, defined as focal or diffuse meningothelial differentiation resembling sarcoma, carcinoma, or melanoma. The additional subtypes or additional features with the papillary meningioma or rhabdoid meningioma. So we have 3 grades. Grade 1 is benign, grade 2 is atypical, and grade 3 is anaplastic. Grade 2 and grade 3 with the mitotic count, you have to see grade 2 is more than 4 and grade 3 is more than 20 mitotic index. Coming to the prognosis, the median patient survival with meningioma 10 years for the WHO grade 1 meningioma and 11.5 years for 2 and 2.7 years for the WHO grade 3 meningioma. The 5-year survival rate, 81% of the patients with age 21 to 64 years, they have 81% of the 5-year survival, and 56% for the patients in older age, above 65 years of age. Prognostic factors for benign tumors, that is grade 1 and grade 2, and for malignant tumors, grade 3. For benign tumors, they are independently associated with the longer survival, where the patient is female, Caucasian race, surgery, complete resection, small size, and no radiation treatment, and skull-based tumor, they have good survival. In malignant histology, that is group 3, grade 3 meningiomas, they are independently associated with the longer survival, with a younger age, female, complete resection, and no radiation treatment. These are the prognostic factors for the benign tumors and malignant tumors. Coming to the clinical feature based on the size and size of the site and size of the tumor. Different sites have different clinical features. You just go through it. The most common features are these: partial seizure is the most common symptom, followed by headache, personality changes, and neuropsychological deficits. Coming to the imaging, we know contrast enhanced MRI is the imaging modality of choice for meningioma, and there is some biological imagings have been evaluated as an imaging modality for meningioma, and although still considered experimental, may ultimately prove useful in determination of grade in tumor delineation and differentiation of recurrence from treatment-related changes. The current limitations of biological imaging include lack of prospective data. Based on recent data, especially for skull-based tumors, there is something called GA dotate PET scan, which has been accepted as a standard in Europe for radiotherapy treatment plan. So, what we have to know, MRI is the imaging modality of the choice. CECT, if MRI is not available, these are the features in CECT. One is buckling of the white matter, and dural tail enhancement. You can see here, this is called dural tail enhancement. You can see the arrow. This is the dural tail enhancement, and this is called dural tail sign or mother-in-law sign. This is the most common sign seen in. This is the sign seen in meningioma. On MRI post contrast, there will be widened. This is the tumor with the widened systems. These are the systems, widened system, and dural tail enhancement. You can see here. Dural tail enhancement is called dural tail sign, prominent feature of the meningioma. So these are the imaging findings of the meningioma. Coming to the management, we divide it into grade 1. As we know, WHO is meningiomas are divided into grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. For grade 1 tumor, surgery is the main management of treatment, and it provides a tissue for astrological typing and grading. And post-operative radiotherapy, adjuvant RT is not recommended following the GTR of newly diagnosed grade 1 meningioma. Let's see what NCCN says. On NCCN, imaging of choice is MRI. As we know, there is a dural tail sign, dural based mass, and contrast enhancing mass, and CSF cleft, that is widened systems. So meningioma is diagnosed. There are different approaches. If the patient is asymptomatic, observation is preferred for asymptomatic small patients, not generally recommended for symptomatic tumors. Asymptomatic small tumors can be observed, or symptomatic tumors, patients with large tumors, the treatment of choice is gross total resection, surgery, followed by you grade the tumors, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Grade 1 tumors, observation, as we discussed in previous slide, as observation, consider for RT for symptomatic patients. What are those symptomatic patients? We'll see next slides. Grade 2 with complete resection, consider for RT. So only grade 1, what they say, grade 1 is observation is enough. For grade 2, grade 3, either it is complete resection or subtotal, gross total resection or subtotal resection, RT is advised. Hope you are following it. So, sorry. Yeah, general treatment, primary treatment of choice is surgery. That is maximum safe resection or gross total resection, followed by grade tumors, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Grade 1 is observation if it is asymptomatic or small tumors. grade 2, grade 3 adjuvant RT is preferred. Oh, this statement is clear for you. Now coming to general treatment information. See, if appropriate, may be treated using SRSR, fractionated SRS. So if it is available, SRSR, FSRT is available. It is encouraged. SRSR, FSRT is encouraged over 3D-CRT, IMRT techniques. Highly conformal RT techniques are recommended to spare critical structures and uninvolved tissue. And yes, the stereotactic or image-guided therapy is recommended when using tissue tight margins or when closed critical structures. Though, what is the statement of this line is that one, if SRSR, FSRT is available, go for it. Or if they are not available, go for it. High-end radiotherapy techniques like 3D-CRT, IMRT is available, go for it. IMRT or VMAT. If it is not available, then 3D-CRT, then conventional. WHO grade 1 gliomas, if the dose of RT, if the patient is symptomatic, the dose of RT is 45 to 54 gray. WHO grade 1 meningiomas may also be treated with SRS with a dose of 12 to 16 gray in a single fraction, appropriate, or hypofractionated FSRT 25 to 30 gray in 5 fractions. Grade 2 meningiomas and grade 3 meningiomas, adjuvant RT is the standard of treatment. The dose is 54 to 60 gray over 1.8 to 2 gray per fraction over the 30 fractions. And tumor volume treatment should be directed to gross tumor, surgical bed, and margin of 1 to 2 centimeter. So this is the margin for your CTV, 1 to 2 centimeter margin. 1 to 2 centimeter CTV, the 0.5 mm, 5 mm PTV to the microscopic disease. So from this slide, what we have to know, one is advanced techniques are prepared, and advanced techniques are prepared, and the grade 1 meningiomas, if it is symptomatic or large tumors, you can prescribe 45 to 54 gray or observe the patient. Grade 2 and grade 3 adjuvant RT is recommended. It is the standard. The dose of RT is 54 to 60 gray. Yeah, this is the our target volume protocols for EBRT and SRS. Yeah, dose already we know 54 to 50 to 54 gray for grade 1, 54 to 59 gray for grade 2, and 59.4 gray for grade 3. And GTV, CTV, and GTV, enhancing tumor and post-op MRI, same tumor with tumor bed and post-op MRI, grade 2 and grade 3, and 1 centimeter expansion for grade 2 tumors and 2 centimeter expansion and CTV for grade 3 tumors, and reduce up to 1 centimeter at 54 gray. After 54 gray, you reduce the CTV margin and you push to 60 gray. And SRS dose 12 to 14 gray for grade 1 and 14 to 18 gray for grade 2 and more than 14 gray for grade 3. Yeah, perspiration with symptomatic meningioma with asymptomatic or with asymptomatic progressively enlarging tumors, complete surgical resection is recommended. All this we have explained. So coming to selecting the treatment modality, so we have said where to observe the patient, where to give the radiotherapy, where to do the surgery. For the tumors with less than 3 cm in the long axis, the treatment options include observation is preferred for art surgery or radiotherapy. Surgery for with neurologic consequences if accessible, followed by radiotherapy for grade 3 tumors, or subtotal resection of WHO grade 2 tumors. For lesions with more than 3 cm and asymptomatic patients, if the tumor is less than 3 cm asymptomatic, you can observe the patient. If it is more than 3 cm and asymptomatic, surgery is preferred, followed by adjuvant RT as we discussed according to the grades. For symptomatic meningioma, if it is tumor is less than 3 cm, surgery followed by see, the patient is symptomatic and the tumor is if the patient is asymptomatic, tumor size is less than cm, you can observe. If the patient is asymptomatic, tumor size is more than 3 cm, you can go for surgery followed by adjuvant RT. Grade 1 is operation systematic adjuvant RT. Grade is GTR 54 grade and grade 3, even if it is a GTR or STR, the adjuvant RT dose of 60 grade to be given. Hope I am clear now. So radiotherapy, same thing, conventional, stereotactic, and FSRT. All this I have explained. Yeah, if you're using conventional technique, the whole brain irradiation is recommended. Parallel opposite lateral field and inferior field border should be inferior to the cribriform plate, midflanal fossa, and foramen magnum, all of which should be distinguishable on simulation or portal localization radiographs. So, if you are giving conventional technique, the treatment technique will be two opposed lateral field techniques, and the inferior border is inferior to the cribriform plate, midcranial fossa, and foramen magnum. So all this is conventional techniques. This is a conventional film lateral portal localization of the whole brain irradiation. SRS is indicated. See, according to the NCCN, the SRS is available for the treatment. You can take SRS for the treatment. SRS may be an alternative to EBRD in patients with recurrent or partially resected tumors with less than 3.5 centimeter. Contraindication to surgery due to comorbidities and skull-based tumors of small or moderate size, and it allows larger radiation dose to the tumor and at the same time limited radiation exposure to the organ at risk. This is the tumor target volume coverage tumor with the dural tail. This is the dural enhancement and dural thickening. Some authors say dural thickening can be included in the. This is controversial issue to cover the dural thickening in the target volume or not. Some authors say you have to include dural thickening. Some say there is no need of dural thickening. This is because this is only enhancement seen on imaging, but it will not be. Neurosurgeons say it was not seen during the operative procedure. This dural thickening was not seen with the tumor. So this dural thickening may not be included. It is not required to include in CTV. Some say like that, but some others say you have to include dural thickening in your target volume. Fractionated SRT around 25 to 30 gray FSRT space normal tissues is equal to hypofractionation. Preferred treatment of optic nerve sheath meningioma. Yeah, these are the target volume of different techniques. Stereotactic radiosurgery as a salvage therapy for patients with recurrent meningioma. You can see the what difference you can make out in these three images of target volumes is that one is the coverage and the conformality. One is this is SRS. Can you please mute yourself? Yeah. All these three techniques, what you can see is one the conformality of the techniques. One is the SRS. You can see the conformality and the dose coverage FSRT. You can see here, and this is the EBRT technique. You can see the coverage of your isodose curves. So as the technique advances, the conformality is more, and the conformality is more, and it will preserve the normal tissues more. Yeah, the same thing which have been discussed. Proton therapy, if proton therapy is available, you can take the proton therapy over all other SRS, FSRT, the EBRT or conventional. Proton therapy reduces, as we all know in previous classes, when we were discussing about medulloblastoma, I've explained the advantages of proton therapy over other techniques. You can see in these images itself. This is proton therapy, IMRT technique. So benefits of proton therapy is causes fewer short and long-term side effects. We want to be effective in adults and children. Target volumes and cancer cells with precision, reducing the risk of damage to surrounding tissues. We all know that reduces the risk of secondary malignancies, and this also has been told, and improves the quality of life. It can be used for treating the recurrent tumors. These are the advantages of proton beam therapy over other modalities of radiation. So treatment overview. Yeah, we'll just see the grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Grade 1 GTR observation. Yes, we all know this. Adjuvant EBRT or SRS, the patient is symptomatic. You can go for adjuvant RT. Grade 2, either it's a GTR or STR, you have to give adjuvant radiotherapy. Grade 3, maximal safe resection with post-operative radiotherapy is the treatment of choice. So that concludes our management of meningioma. Now coming to ependymoma. Ependymoma, which are the glial tumors. Introduction. Ependymomas are the glial tumors arising from the ependymal cells of the nervous system. The mean age is 30 to 40 years. The tumors are more common in adults than children, males than females. However, that meningioma was more common in females. The median duration of symptoms before presentation is 2 to 4 years, and the pain is the most common symptom in the ependymoma. The 2 to 3rd ependymomas occur in the lumbosacral region, and 40% arise in the phylum terminal because of the propensity of these tumors to seed the cranospinal axis. That is 11% of the tumor goes to the CSF axis by drop net metastasis. CSF evaluation and craniospinal MRI are strongly recommended at the time of diagnosis to determine the disease extent. So this is important statement here. The CSF analysis and craniospinal MRI is advised. Yeah. Yeah. Coming to epidemiology, these tumors account for 1.8% of all primary CNS tumors. In children, ependymal tumors are more common and account for 5.2% of all primary CNS tumors. And WHO classification of CNS tumors into distinct entities and histological variants. The WHO classification also comprises histological grading into three: grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. And biologically, these ependymomas are described in 4 types by the Bailey. Bailey described the 4 types of ependymoma: myxopapillary, subependymoma. These myxopapillary and subependymoma are grade 1 tumors. You just remember it: myxopapillary and subependymoma histology after surgery comes, it is grade 1 tumors, and ependymoma is grade 2 tumors, and anaplastic ependymoma grade 3 tumors. These are the 4 distinct classifications of the ependymoma done by Bailey. And ependymoma is grade 2 tumors, and this ependymoma again subdivided into papillary, clear cell, tansitic, and rail of fusion positive ependymoma. This rail of fusion positive ependymoma is
Hello.
included in the
Sir, not audible.
Sir,
not audible, sir. Voice is breaking. Voice is breaking, sir.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think I'm clear.
No, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, coming to the biology, when you describe the 4 types of ependymoma, myxopapillary.
Please, hello. Please
What?
keep your earphone with your earphone.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Bailey described the 4 types of ependymoma: the myxopapillary, subependymoma, ependymoma, and anaplastic ependymoma. These 2 are grade 1, this is grade 2, and this is grade 3. And the ependymoma again subdivided into papillary, clear cell, tansitic, and rail of fusion positive. This rail of fusion positive is a new entity which was added in the WHO 2016 update. Yeah, coming to the pathology of the ependymomas arise from the ependymal cells and typically occur in the central canal of the spinal cord, the phylum terminal, and the white matter adjacent to the ventricular surface. They are either low-grade tumors and anaplastic tumors, and the latter being the more likely to disseminate via the CSF. The myxopapillary ependymomas are low-grade, grade 1 tumors, which I told in the previous slide, that are typically occur in the lumbosacral region, are well differentiated and are often encapsulated, but can seed the CSF typically with a drop metastasis. Myxopapillary ependymomas often progress slowly and cause milder than expected neurological deficits of their size, and however, there are reports of CSF dissemination at a diagnosis with the myxopapillary ependymoma. However, myxopapillary ependymoma is considered as grade 1 ependymoma. So I was telling about the rail of fusion positive, which was included in the WHO 2016 update. So what is rail of fusion positive? The recommendation of rail of fusion positive is recommended in the appropriate clinical context. However, you can see this this slide which I highlighted. The detection of rail of fusion is not required for the diagnosis of ependymoma. However, ependymoma is present in rail of fusion positivity is present in ependymoma. However, rail of fusion positivity is not required for the diagnosis of ependymoma. As of now, rail of fusion positivity is only prognostic value. The rail of fusion positivity ependymomas are more aggressive than other ependymmomas. ISC ependymomas are positive for Glial fibrillary acid protein (GFAP) and EMA, that is epithelial membrane antigen, and S100 and YMT. These are the ISC markers positive for ependymoma. This is also important, and rail of fusion is important. Rail of fusion has only prognostic value. This is present in ependymoma, however, it is not required for diagnosis, and the rail of fusion positivity is more aggressive compared to other ependymmomas. Coming to the appearance of ependymomas, it is again macroscopic and microscopic appearance. Macroscopically, ependymomas tend to be well defined and lobulated gray or tan colored, soft and frond-like tumors, which are moderately cellular. We have another 10 minutes here. They may have focal areas of calcification. Microscopically, these tumors are characterized by well differentiated cells and with ependymal rosettes. This is the feature seen in ependymoma, which are uncommon but pathognomonic feature of ependymoma, and perivesicular pseudoresept, which are far more common than ependymal rosettes seen in most of the ependymomas. So coming to the prognostic factors, these are the prognostic factors. Patients are younger age with the these are the good prognostic factors. Patients with younger age and patient are tumor with the lumbosacral lesion, myxopapillary because it is grade 1, WHO grade 1 tumors, tumor amenable to GDR or STR, and good preoperative function of the patient. Coming to the clinical features, again, clinical features vary depending on the size and location of the tumor. The initial presentation is usually raised intracranial pressure. The other symptoms include ataxia and headache, vomiting. These are the other seizures and focal neurological diseases. These are depending on the size and site of the lesion. Coming to the imaging, we know MRI is the investigation of choice, and on MR spectroscopy, there will be elevated volume and 10 aspirate levels. Copular MRI may get
breaking.
Sir, voice breaks, sir.
Hemocytic gap. So on MRI,
Sir,
you can see
please.
T1 is isointense, hypointense, T2 is importance,
Hello.
hyperintense, and heterogeneous. So these are the MRI images of the ependymoma. The T1 post contrast, T2 sees T1 with the contrast. You can see predominantly filling the. One second. Anamit. Yeah. 1 second. Yeah. Now I'm audible. Can someone respond, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll proceed. This is the MRI of the brain of the ependymoma. Has been more. There is on T2 the tumors will be hyperintense, and T1 it is isolated to hypointense.
Dr. Kiran, Dr.
Yes.
Kiran, Dr. Vibhaya.
Yes.
Dr. Vibhaya.
Yes,
I
sir.
think there is some Bluetooth device that must be there around. I think Dr. Rajesh has pointed out very well. That is causing interference. Your voice is audible, but there is some Bluetooth device that might be on, or some static interference that is coming. So if you can just, because we are just able to hear the static interference, and your voice is cracking a lot. So
Yes, sir. I switched off my phone. I think it's with my phone. I switched it off now.
Oh, no, it's still there.
Yeah. Now am I clear at least?
A little bit better. Yeah, you can continue.
Yeah. We'll proceed, sir. We'll proceed now.
No, again, it's there's a lot of interference and breaking of your voice that is present. Is your network fine?
Maybe issue with the network, I think, sir. But yeah.
Some problem with the mic? Can you change your headphone or something?
Yes, sir.
Is that possible?
Yeah. Can you give me 5 minutes? I'll just change the network and share the link again. Yeah. Give me 5 minutes. I'll
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, you can leave. I'll share the another link. I'll just check out my what is the issue with the. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Kiran.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Till that you're sorting out. I think we've got 5 minutes. Can we just add on a little bit about meningioma till then you're sorting out?
Yeah. You can. Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like me and Dr. Kiran had discussed, just a few pointers which are related to meningioma that we've discussed so far. Just a second.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So it was very well presented. Meningioma, if you look at it, 20 to 30%, like all the incidences that were discussed. One point that I wanted to add was the spinal meningioma. Spinal meningioma is around 10% of the cases.
Yes.
And the female to male incidence it's much higher in those cases. It's around 9:1 as compared to 2:1, which is there with your intracranial ones.
Yes, sir.
The other thing that you need to actually look into is your the various other risk factors. Now we've got various hormonal therapy that is coming into picture, and that is because exogenous hormones and estrogen that was actually being delivered was one of the predominant factors which was causing meningiomas in the patients. So the other risk factors that like increased BMI, reduced activity, also a height of more than 5'6" in females is associated with meningioma. Also breast cancer is an entity which is associated with a lot of meningioma. One question that is commonly asked in your Viva is the general incidence of meningioma that has been found in the autopsy samples. So it was an American study that was done. It was through the SEER data that we came to know that it is close to 3%. So if you look at the general population, the asymptomatic group also, it was around 3% who are suffering from it. It's commonly in the 6 to 8 decade and increases exponentially. Uh, one more thing that was there is the Simpsons grading. Simpsons grading is something I think was not discussed. Simpsons
Yes, yes,
grading
yes.
is very important because
Post
according to
out
that,
grading. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
yeah, so that has to be discussed because that decides your extent of surgery that is
Resection.
being done. Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
exactly. So
Yes,
basically, your Simpsons grade 1, 2, 3 are your gross total resection. In grade 1, what happens is you remove the dural attachment and your abnormal bone with coagulation, with resection rather. And in Simpsons grade 2, it is with coagulation that you remove your dural attachment and the abnormal bone. And in Simpsons grade 3, the dural attachment is not removed, the rest of the tumor is removed.
Yes,
Grade
yes,
4
yes.
is subtotal resection, and grade 5 is just a debulking or a decompression that is done alone. So that was something on that. In your negative predictive factors, I would just like to add a little bit more. The age is less than 45 years. That is actually one of the inclusion criteria in the only RTOG that is being done, RTOG 0539. So age less than 45 years, a high grade tumor. The chromosome alteration that you talked about, it is basically on chromosome number 14 and 22. So that has to be 67 index also. So Ki67, if you see in breast cancer or the other malignancies, it's in the tune of 5 to 10% or even up to 20% in some of the malignancies, which is considered as low. But however, meningioma is one disease entity where even more than 1% is considered as a negative predictive value. So, and even along with that, your P53 overexpression. The other thing, you're talking about the dural tail. So dural tail, a very common question that is asked is the differential diagnosis. So one thing you got to remember, there is something called as a meningomimic. There is a tumor in the CNS which mimics the meningioma very closely. That is hemangiopericytoma. So
Yes, yes.
hemangiopericytoma is also one which has a dural tail. The other tumors that have a dural tail include your sarcoma. They can be a lymphoma. They can be chloroma. So these are your differential diagnosis for the presence of the dural tail. So the dural tail, you've got to know, it's just the compression that is seen and which causes the existence of the dural tail, and that is the reason behind now the radiation oncology community excluding it out in your in the
Target.
because
Yes.
that it has shown that it really does not have the tumor cells. One interesting fact that you put across, it is also called as a mother-in-law sign.
Yes,
Do you
yes.
know why it is called as a mother-in-law sign? So basically, it's just a joke that was there in the radiology community.